Any word on November 3rd election poll? Voting year?
As far as, and Lois, do you have anything, you're working in, and Carlton works the polls, I mean, we're gonna do it as usual, correct? The polls will be open, correct? Yeah.
How
No
about,
change.
how about the word plantation? Is it going or is it staying?
Jury's out,
Okay.
you're still doing the survey.
Any crime
Wait
report?
for the results to come in, and then we'll move from there.
Any crime report?
We had that rash of break-ins into vehicles that were unlocked, and, I'll say it again, the best thing you can do for crime prevention is to lock your car, lock the doors to your house, and don't leave items of value in plain sight. And if you own a gun, you have a responsibility to secure that gun and not leave it in the glove compartment of your unlocked car and unlocked glove compartment so some dopey person can steal it. We had 3 guns stolen that were left in vehicles. And that, I believe that was in July, Warren, and we haven't had a repeat of that. Obviously, we changed our mode of operation due to that. We always get a report of a stolen ring or stolen jewelry. 99% of the time, they find that in their own house. We had one 2 days ago. A $4,500 diamond ring was missing, and they called us. They called Beaufort County, and the next day they found it in the soap dish on the counter in the bathroom. And we don't like to put those out there because generally those things are found. We understand they're valuable and people get upset when they find them missing, but oftentimes they're just misplaced. But as far as crime goes, we're doing fine. Doing fine. Other questions?
Thank you. Are board meetings going to be held virtually so that we can listen or participate?
We don't have any plans to do that presently. I mean, I know the technology is out there. A couple people asked me. I don't have an IT department to work all of that. And the board, at this time, we're hoping to open it back up again, that we're not going to have to keep it locked up.
Okay. The Girl Scouts at my church are doing virtual meetings, so might people who have the technology or the skills to do it help the office if that's what's needed?
Yeah, the board has heard you, so they'll see what we'll do.
Oh.
Peter, are there any of the short-term rental properties not covered by the lawsuit settlement? Are there others out there?
Yes, and we're following up. Roulette is pursuing. We are enforcing that as of now.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter, and all of you here. Warren, we appreciate you. Very thankful. I have 3 quick questions that are related to activity and sport activities. The one is what's the plan and the timing to upgrade the bocce courts? Second related question is, are we going to do something with the old shuffleboard? I can't even call them courts anymore. It's cement. And my third part of the question is, when would we add some pickleball courts, which has become one of the most popular sport activities around?
All good questions. We don't have any immediate plans for the bocce court expansion. We looked at the use, and presently it doesn't demand more courts. However, to your point about the shuffleboard courts, we will demo those because those are not used at all. And we'll probably, at the right time, put bocce courts, additional bocce courts right there next to the existing ones. We're going to do we do a survey every 3 years, a total resident survey, and pickleball will be once again on that survey. So if you're interested in pickleball, I would urge you to have everyone who's interested in that check the box, because, you know, that's what drives the funds. You know, right now, we're looking at capital funds for completing the Dolphin Head area. I'm praying that this building is next. It is the next oldest facility that we have. But if you get an overwhelming, you know, Keith is excited about pickleball, and I know the town has that in their plan to do that as well in expansion. So it is a very popular activity. But when you get the survey, pickleball will be on there. Check the box.
Good morning. Can you hear me? All right. My question is, do we have the money to perhaps install electronic speedometers throughout areas where chronic speeders are continually putting some of us at risk? I live at 1 Sugar Pine, and there are a lot of us who walk the school on Dolphin Head, and people frequently are going 40, 50, 60 miles an hour whizzing down the road. And I would hate to have a pedestrian accident. And oftentimes, governments don't do anything until there's a tragedy. But is there something that we can do? Thank you.
Yeah, we do have a speed board. We have 2 of them, and we move them around. And if you give Major Gaither, I have to call him Major now, get used to that. Give Major Gaither a call and give him a hot spot where you would like him to place that. We will move those around. We don't like to keep them in one place because once people get used to them, they kind of, you know, ignore them. But when they pop up, but if you let them know, we'll move that around. We move it around all the time for exactly the reason you raised.
I was happy to see the survey come out, but I have a couple quick questions. The third question that was on that survey, can you tell me what the thinking was behind that question, please?
The survey was approved by the board. I can only speculate on their thought process, and it was, you know, do people need more information regarding the cost before they can make an informed decision? I think that's where they were on it.
Okay. And can you tell me, how do you think that will be weighted when you tally up the results? That question.
Well, you have to look at the overall results and put it in context. So it's not meaningful as a standalone. It has to be taken in concert with the other 2 questions where the people weigh in. Mark is getting the workout. Hopefully it'll carry that far.
On your handout, you have, one of the line items is the town of Hilton Head Island has proposed a new stormwater management for Hilton Head Plantations consideration. Would you discuss that?
Sure. The town wants to standardize their stormwater management agreement with all of the gated communities on the island. Right now, each one is a little bit different, and they wanted to make them standard. If you're a new resident or have not been here more than less than 10 years, before we entered into this agreement with the town, we repaired our own stormwater management infrastructure. All the piping under the ground that handles stormwater, that drain in the middle of the parking lot, the ditches along the streets, the lagoons, the outfalls, all of those we took care of. And we reserved millions and millions of dollars for the replacement and repair of that infrastructure. The Federal Clean Water Act mandated that all of the states and then all of the counties develop a stormwater management utility. And the county did that. And when they did that, they charged you all a fee. And there's a stormwater utility fee on your tax bill. It's a fee, not a tax. You're not supposed to deduct it. Everybody does. And that has paid for stormwater infrastructure. Back when it was first proposed, we weren't getting a dime out of that. We were paying into it, and it went to the county, and we did not receive a benefit. And we cried foul and said, well, wait a minute, all of our residents, over 4,000 properties, are paying into that, and we're not getting any direct benefit. And the argument was, well, we're making repairs to 278 and, into the public areas. I said, yeah, great, but the people who live on a county road are getting the service, but we're not getting the service. And we worked out a plan that if we did certain things, we would get a piece of that money that we paid in directly from the county. And we did that, and we ended up getting $55,000 a year from the county. And we used that, and we put it in our R&R fund, and we continued to repair our own stormwater management infrastructure. And if you're not a maintenance junkie like David and I and Dave Pollock, John Herron are, you don't care about what's in the ground until it collapses and your car falls in it. But the town quickly figured out that, well, Hilton Head Plantation is getting that money directly from the county, and guess what? The town doesn't get that $50,000 because we're getting it. Well, the other communities on the island said, how did you do that, Hilton Head Plantation? And we told them how we did it. And the town said, well, how about if we take over and you don't take that money? And it was a 5-4 vote in favor of turning it over to the town. It was not unanimous. There was a lot of skepticism on the part of the board at that time, whether or not the town would do the right thing and give us the service that we felt we deserved. And to their credit, they have spent literally millions of dollars on replacing infrastructure. The Deerfield Road project is one of them, replacing infrastructure on Hilton Head Plantation and the others. So it has been to our mutual benefit. And this agreement is just, kind of codifying that, and we're going to take a look at it. We gave it to our attorney to take a look at, and the maintenance committee is also going to take a look at it. So that's the long answer to that question. Margie?
Regarding the name change in the plantation, can you tell us why it was called a survey and not a vote?
They're kind of both the same. It wasn't a vote would indicate that it was a final thing, and it's not. Depending on how the survey is answered. In fact, we got yelled at because we said, one vote for property, and somebody says it isn't a vote, it's a survey. So, survey vote. I probably didn't answer your question, but a vote would be more official. And, if you did a vote, we would have to do it by the governing documents, and that's not what we wanted to do. We wanted to just get a feel, take the temperature of the community on it.
Peter, so on that same subject, are you saying that there are no plans to publish the numbers that are associated with the different options for the cost of this until a survey gets done? And if people request it in the survey, then you'll publish the numbers?
The numbers regarding how much it would cost to change the name?
Yes. You've got a couple of different options, I know.
Oh, yeah, and to be honest with you, the Finance Committee is looking at that, and there's a couple of different ways to do it, and they want to get the results of the survey to find out if that's the will of the community. They don't want to go through a whole long process. I have my opinion on how much it would cost. Members of the Finance Committee have their opinion on how much it would cost, and it's all speculation at this point until you get hard numbers from folks. But until they get the results of the survey in a clear direction, we'll take the next step from there. The board will take the next step from there.
But I guess I'm curious because I go back to the question that was asked before about that third question about do you want more information? So so if a lot of people say they want more information, are you going to do it then, or are you just not going to do
I
it?
mean, you know, if it overwhelmingly looks like that's going to push it in one direction or another, you know, then you know we'll come up with some numbers and get them out there so people can weigh in on that. And I believe the board made it clear this is the first step. This is not the end step. This is the first step. Because even after you get these results, there's different. You can do doing business as, and you can do an actual change of the governing documents, which is much more complicated. You need roller skates, Mark.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier in the discussion that one of the things that new people ask about is Wi-Fi and cell phone, is communication questions. And a number of years ago, the plantation went to great effort to get our pine tree antenna up. Several of us, and if you were on, what is it, neighborhood or whatever that neighbors organization, next door, that media, you'll note that several of us have noticed that sometime in August, all of a sudden our Verizon bars went from having 4 or 5 bars for our communication down to like 2 bars, and we periodically drop a voice communication. The Verizon's reply is, well, we've got a lot of leaves around here on trees, which you got to wonder all those leaves that popped out suddenly in August. I don't know if you've heard this or whether there's been any communication with Verizon about that, but it seems that affects.
There has, and all of the cell phone carriers and all of the Wi-Fi carriers have been inundated because the pandemic has increased the use of Zoom, increased the kids on devices and on computers, and it's all pulling from that service. And if you use a wireless service or a wireless hotspot, it's drawing down that service. So, I'm not surprised. I've seen the same thing at my house where I lose service for a period of time, during peak hours. It just drains it. And I believe it has to be, in conjunction with where just everybody is on it. And it needs to be, it tells us how darn dependent we've become on it. Do I have a solid answer for you? Yeah, we need to get a vaccine and get this darn thing over with. So we get back to talking to each other, not 6 feet away. Sir?
Yeah, could you talk a little about the Pine Island replenishment? We seem to struggle with keeping the sand on the water side of the walkway. Is that permanent or any?
Yep, it sure is. Yep. Mother Nature's going to do what Mother Nature does. We put the boardwalk there to at least have some dry area so that you can get from one end to the other. When we put a plug of sand in there, it'll look a lot better. But that's what it's going to be. And we asked folks in a survey a couple of years ago whether or not you want us to keep doing what we're doing and would you be willing to pay more to do it. And it was like 89% of you said, absolutely. Do not stop what you're doing. So we're keeping on. We're going to look at something else with DHEC possibly. Going back to sand scraping again and possibly extending the boardwalk. But those are all issues that we're going to have to run through various agencies. There's a cheap way of doing it, and that's just to scrape the sand from the other side and bring it over, and that's extremely inexpensive. What costs us all this money is trucking that darn stuff down from Columbia out of the sand pit. It's all transportation.
Peter, back here.
Okay.
Speaking of DHEC, do you have any additional information on that Arbor Nature situation? Even though it doesn't happen directly on the plantation, obviously it affects us.
Well, here's, I talked about the trash thing being comprehensive. When the county closes down or limits contractors going to the convenience centers, those contractors, the only other alternative they have is to go to the landfill in Hickory Hill and in Ridgeland. And the fear is that they're going to get rid of it somewhere else. And that's a concern. And right now, there isn't any other place for them to put it but in that landfill. I know that, I believe there's a DHEC hearing, I don't know if it's today. Is it today? Yep. And we've advertised that so people can weigh in. You're right, it doesn't affect us directly, but everybody wants to have a comprehensive trash program, but nobody wants it near them. And something is going to have to be done about dealing with all the trash because they're going to put it somewhere. And the other thing is the landfill is going to fill up and they're going to have to figure out what to do with that. And then the other conversation I had with the chairman of the county council was you need to reverse the charges at the landfill where instead of paying to dump recycling and it's free to dump trash, you need to flip it around that it's free to get rid of your recycling and it is a tipping fee to get rid of your trash. Because right now, lots of carriers take the recycling and they throw it in with the trash because they're not charged a fee for it. But if they dump it as recycling, they are charged a fee. And that's the way it's been set up for years and it's stale backwards.
Peter, thank you. Your report this morning speaks well for the Hilton Head Plantation brand. And I wonder if in considering the cost of any change to a name, they're looking into the cost of rebranding our plantation.
That's one of the costs that we are looking at. We actually talked to a marketing company on that very topic.
Peter, I'm curious because of that question. I've heard this comment and heard these statements. What is the current budget for branding?
Zero.
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 So this idea that somehow we're going to be having to expend all this money, we don't brand now. We don't do any branding now. Correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
However, the follow-up question is that we've been around for 30 years as Hilton Head Plantation. And the realtors is marketed as Hilton Head Plantation. Our website says Hilton Head Plantation, and all of our promotional materials say Hilton Head Plantation. So if you make a change, you are going to have to associate one entity with the new entity, and that is going to be rebranding. So you're going to have to do it, even though you didn't spend that money. The developers did it long ago, and the realtors do it now. However, if you're going to make a change like that, where you're going to have to change the name, and we don't have the luxury of just dropping plantation from our name. I mean, Wexford bought a bucket of paint, and that's what they did. We don't have that luxury. We're going to have to change every. We're going to have a new name.
Yes, along with the same issue as far as the name change, I was wondering when we do get the results of the survey, I'm not sure how they're going to be definitive in any way since we had that third question with it. When we do get those results, will there be an opportunity for the people that are the For Change group that kind of began this or that picked it up? Will there be a chance for them to present a case in Plantation Living so the all the people on Plantation see what their reasoning is for doing this?
No.
And why would that be?
Because if the board lets you do that, then they have to let the other side make their case, and
Well.
And we're not about editorial comment in Plantation Living. If you want to get your word out, those folks have sent out a mailer to every resident on the Hilton Head Plantation.
Yes, I'm aware.
And pushed it on videos and athome.net and what have you. And, you know, we're just giving you the facts. And I know people tell me that, several people tell me I'm absolutely biased, and depending on which side you are, they tell me I'm biased in one direction or the other. They say I'm biased in favor of the name change, and they tell me I'm biased against the name change, and it just depends on what their perspective is. So we're not, you know, we're not going to end up with all of this editorial comment in Plantation Living. We're going, you know, if you want to make your case, hopefully we're going to have another meeting like this, and you can speak just like you're speaking now.
I have to say, when Plantation Living came out, and I believe you had a page and a half or so of basically why it wasn't a good idea to have the name change just because of the finances, I felt that it was a little one-sided. And it didn't give the other group to explain that they had other ways, they've looked at other ways of how this could be done. Other plantations have done it different ways. I think if you want people to really be able to make a good, educated decision on how they feel about this, all information should be out. And the For Name Change group is an organized group. I don't know if there is an organized group on the other side.
Oh, yes, there is.
Well, then why not let them present a case one time in Plantation Living, and the other group present their case in Plantation Living? Because knowledge is power, and not everybody has all the information. So why not give an opportunity for one page, like they do with some of the magazines here, you know, the pros and cons, one time, to have that set so people can hear and see for themselves. One time, it's not going to be a slippery slope. It would be one time so people can make an educated decision on what they want to do. I just don't have it. I don't see an answer coming from you on that. Why not one time, both opinions? Here's a pro opinion, here's a con opinion, one time.
Appreciate your input. My answer is we appreciate your input, and the board would make that decision, not Peter Christian. And I've heard from folks the information that I put out there that I'm biased for the name change. So depending on your particular position, you read into what the facts that are provided, your bias. And I'm sorry about that. I'm there to provide the facts and only the facts. And you know, and I get what you're saying, but we know that there are various ways of doing it. And believe me, I am getting beat up by both sides. Believe me, this is not the position I want to be in. But I'm here, and I'm not backing away from it, and I'm going to listen to everybody, and I'm going to stand here and take the hit. I'm here. And the board has gotten every single message, every single email, every single letter that has been sent has gone to the board.
Can I have a question about security.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is a long shot, but you know, there's a lot of talk about EMPs and things like that. Does our community have some sort of plan if something dramatic like that happened?
I'm not sure of the question.
EMP.
I brought you a book. You can read it, and then I'll follow up with you.
Okay. Obviously, the fire department has EMTs. Oh, knocking out the electronics, magnetic pulse.